mean, I think, really, up until you brought positive intelligence to me, I really didn't know how people viewed me. And I struggled to understand some of the difficulties I had in some relationships. Um, and then when I started to know about my saboteurs and how and why I think the way that I do, and also how others would perceive me, I was like, huh. And this is what's so important because a lot of people will interpret people and think their intentions are manipulative or evil or underhanded or whatever the enemy image idea is. And it's really not true. People are only trying to get their needs met. But when we're stuck in our own perception of reality, we can't see that. And that's when we start to label people with, he's a narcissist, they're a this. And there are some extreme behaviors, I'll give you that. But every human being does what they do to get their needs met. Some type of survival perception. And in our culture, we label and diagnose people more than we are able to identify our own feelings and our own needs and how this body conduit works in relationships. And whether or not we can take that feedback. And you're right, I love what you say about community and data gathering. You actually know what's going on in your world when people will give you honest feedback. And in our culture, we're such people pleasers, like Canada is like, oh, so nice. And then we don't actually know what's true and what's going on. People, it's just, it lacks substance. And this is when you said, in my house, to know that there was life going on. You know, I had my parents and my brother, and we had 3 golden retrievers at one point. There were people, but there wasn't any life. It was so suffocating and strangling because we had all these perceptions and judgments that no one ever spoke out loud. My parents didn't often argue in angry tones. My dad would say something like, well, you know, we're not arguing. And I'd be like, but they're not talking either. It was just silence and quiet and no interaction, no support, no laughter, no fun, no play, no life was there. And I just longed for these kind of conversations we're having. So I so appreciate them.
Yeah, like imagine, around the dinner table or like family reunions that we can truly share what we think about each other. I mean, we can make it more of a softer landing, right, in a nonviolent way. Though, like, to be able to, like, for me to realize how my parents view me, like, truly, how do they view me, right? And I have no clue. And I never had that conversation with them. I'm not sure if they're, willing and open to sharing or have the capacity to. But just imagine that, right? Being able to communicate to my siblings or my family members of what we truly think and clear that so that even in relationships, that it's so easy to project this idealized Barbie or Ken, Hollywood figure onto someone. And we want to fix and control them to fit this mold of who we want them to be, right? Versus who are they really? What do you actually think of me? And then we can work through cleaning that up, right? So that we don't betray ourselves with each other. And it's challenging when there's a people pleaser there or an avoider in the relationship or even a controller in the relationship, right? Controlling everything. So it's just realizing that, like, am I allowing you to be who you are in this relationship? Are you allowing me to be who I am in this relationship? Or is there an expectation to change one another? Or there's an expectation that we're not really open to sharing about this person that we're with, right? For whatever reasons. So I love community in a space where I can have these real conversations and get that feedback. Because, like, I don't want to be around yes men all the time, yes people all the time, right? Don't smoke up my yin yang, right? I want to be with people that tell me as it is. Like, that's why I believe that in our culture, we lack accountability, right? That directness in a loving way, not being disrespectful to each other, but be able to speak the truth. Right? Call into that. Even
Tracy
like,
has an interesting comment there, which I think is probably true for most
yeah,
people.
scared, right? I do feel fearful because I might be fearful what they say about me. My family know me the best, right? My siblings know me the best. They've seen all sides of me, right? And it's easy for them to perhaps weaponize my past against me, right? Well, that's why you always say, Dre, you started this and you never finish. What's going to be different this time around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I like her last comment there. Can you pop it up? This leads into a very, very interesting conversation. Right? I tend to listen and trust their opinions and lose myself. Yeah. How can we maintain our own sovereignty in that, right? Not take on other people's projections. Like, how do we sift through the muck of that? How do we know what our inner resonant truth is about who we are in alignment with our own purpose, so that we don't take on other people's projections? We only take on what is actually true about ourselves. That's a really good question. This does come with self-awareness of what thoughts we think, how we've been taught. The saboteur assessment is a really good start so that we know. And of course, coming into communities, which, by the way, Andre and I have opened a Facebook group for conscious co-creating relationships. Find us on Facebook if you want to know more about everything that we talk about. We're going to be doing a lot of information in there. And Tracy says, I think they come from a place of judgment and not from a place of love. That's true. So many people do come from a place of judgment and they think it's love, but it's not. And so this discernment really comes about as we practice some of Marshall Rosenberg's principles in nonviolent communication and merge it with some work in the saboteur world and inside out, that knowing our bodies as this conduit to truth, because we haven't been taught to trust the energy that runs through our body. Emotions, stuff them down, try to fix them, try to do something else for them, rather than truly treating them as the GPS for our life that they really are. There's some really twisted concepts that we've had. And so the key piece is knowing what's a judgment and what allows us to identify and feel our life-serving energy, which is really tied back to our needs. I'm going to
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah. The discernment of judgment, right? Because some judgments has truth to it, right? Judgment exists for a reason. It's a mental faculty to assess the situation for survival. It's definitely needed, right? No, it's like this ability to own it. Like, if I can own my judgment, I can be, please correct me. I judge X, right? Which allows the person to be like, no, that's not me. It's their sovereignty to choose to receive it or not. And for me to own that, it is my judgment coming from that place on my projection, right? And I agree with you, Elizabeth. Like, my family, Asian culture, I'd say, is very critical, and it's your way of showing love, right? It's a way to protect me, to strengthen me, to make me successful, and it's like telling me what I'm missing, what my gaps are. It just happens that my love language is words of affirmation, so I took it so seriously and end up living out what they told me who I was not, right? And so just realizing that, of like, okay, um, that's why I didn't want to share anything about my life, because I was scared. I was scared as well that they would use that against me, because every time I would share something going on in my life, this is my projection, that they would pick holes in it. Though knowing now it was a way to express love and care, right? Culturally, that is. Though imagine if I was in a community where we had the conscious communication skills to give each other that feedback in a way that if you receive the feedback and you're triggered, okay, great, let's work through that trigger. Let's work through it so we can clean through it, right? And I also relate to like going to, the family outing or my parents, and they give me an opinion. It's as if like their opinion weighs way more than mine, and then I start doubting myself and I believe theirs. Because growing up, I wasn't told to have needs. I didn't have my own feelings. I didn't have my own life plan laid out for me. It was my parents' life plan laid out for me. which meant that I'm not good enough and that I don't trust myself because I got to learn from them. My parents are what I should trust. What should they tell me, right? So then I betrayed myself. And that's okay because I just didn't have the awareness. Well, the work here is know thyself, knowing what gives you your life story energy, knowing who you are, your values, your principles, your makeup, your blueprint, so that you do have the discernment where if you receive a strong opinion from someone that you love, that you're able to not take it in, right? If it's not true, right? It's not inner resonance because we're not talking about taking everybody's opinion in. We're going to use discernment, right? Gathering what's feedback that's relevant versus what's not, without betraying myself and who I am. And the second thing is I always have a choice who I want to hang around with. If I'm hanging around with people that is always cutting me down, talking down on me, and it's not nourishing whatsoever.
You muted yourself.
Yeah, and it's my choice to take myself out of that situation, right? So there's many different angles here, but just knowing that I'd rather put myself in a situation where, or in a community or group where we're raising each other up. We're giving each other feedback so that we can become more whole, right? I want feedback to highlight my blind spots, and the way it's communicated is well received, right? Right? Versus like, no, I don't want this because you're provoking me, you're making me defensive, you're triggering me, right?
Right. So how then do we, because they brought up a really good point, like if it's family members, how do we navigate that? Because they can be judging us, they can be doing those things, but we really, most of us anyways, still want to have a relationship with our parents or with our family members. So although perhaps we can know that negative judgment's not ours, it's still painful. It still hurts to know that others can't see their blind spots and are often projecting different things on us. They call it scapegoating. A lot of us can experience that in different ways. And how do we honor ourselves to find the support that we need to shift that and feel safe? So what is, yeah, Elizabetha is all the way far away. It's not in our culture. I can't do this with my friends and not with my family. No, some cultures are different. In Canada, we don't tend to do it here either. It was actually in India, of all places, when I lived there, when I was 24 years old, there was a group of people. And they all said, okay, everybody, go around the circle and tell this person 2 things you really like and admire about them, and 1 thing that annoys you or that irritates you. And I thought to myself, holy shit, people actually say these things to each other. I was like, oh my God. And I was so nervous and so scared. And at the same time, I was like, wow, wouldn't the world be a different place if we did this? And you're right, Elizabeth, that does need to be in a container, a different culture, to be able to do it. And as we're in that culture, we start then to see our family and our parents a little bit differently. And as we start to feel safe in ourselves, we start talking to them differently. And then they feel the sense of compassion coming from you. And then they kind of wonder what you're doing. People then become attracted to that over time, especially as we learn to keep our boundaries. If some older people, perhaps there's dementia, there's different things that can be quite violent. And so we need to keep enough space to stay connected with our truth. And that's okay.